welcome James Yeager, one of the militia people watching the Bundy Ranch, currently the CEO of Tactical Response, Inc., a training company, CEO of Tactical Response Gear, a supply company based in Tennessee. Mr. Yeager, thanks for coming on the program. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Are you still in Nevada?
No, sir. I've left.
What prompted you to go? You traveled, 26 hours across country to go support Clive and Bundy?
Well, mostly I took a bunch of camera gear and went as a documentarian.
Now, as you know, you've been accused of saying some things about killing people if gun control goes one more step in the wrong direction as far as you see it. And I wonder what made you say that.
Anger and frustration. And it bothers me that the government thinks that it can run roughshod over the Constitution.
Well, we could argue about, obviously, whether it is or isn't doing that, and we may disagree about that. But to say it the way you said it, good idea?
Well, it made a lot of people talk. It started.
Well, it did start a conversation, no question. But would you have done it? Would you have said it the same way if you had to do it all over again?
I'm a man of conviction, and I do realize, Alan, that I do realize I ran into the theoretical movie theater and yelled fire. And at no point in time have I stood behind the First Amendment in my words, but I do believe they were important words, and I do believe that they did stimulate a discussion that this country needed to have.
But I thought you apologized for those comments, didn't you?
I did.
But you still say you would have said it again if you had to do it all over again?
Yes.
Even after you apologized for it?
Yes.
That seems contradictory.
I understand. It's a very complex issue, and it's a very complicated situation.
So you're sorry you said it, but you'd say it again?
I'm sorry the way I said it. I'm not sorry I said it.
Then how would you say it the next time?
I'm not really sure, Alan. I hope there is not a next time.
When you say not a next time, there was an assault weapons ban supported by Ronald Reagan after Reagan was shot, supported by James Brady, Ronald Reagan's press secretary at the time. We don't have as strict laws now as we had then. Barack Obama has actually increased where you can carry a gun, sanctifying it in public parks. He's not taking guns away. In fact, we're going in the opposite direction in terms of gun freedom in this country. Why would you be worried about that?
I believe on a state level we are moving forward, but on a federal level we're moving backwards.
No, the president is allowing guns in parks now.
Just in the last month, the ATF has banned importation of a certain kind of ammunition that was coming in. It was a very cheap, inexpensive ammunition that people were using in dreaded assault rifles, and the ATF has just arbitrarily banned the import of that ammunition. That's a huge thing. That's a huge setback.
Well, let me play for the audience who did not hear what you did say, which did start the conversation.
Vice President Biden is asking the president to bypass Congress and use executive privilege, executive order to ban assault rifles, to impose stricter gun control. I'm telling you that if that happens, it's going to spark a civil war, and I'll be glad to fire the first shot. I'm not putting up with it. You shouldn't put up with it. And I need all you patriots to start thinking about what you're going to do. Load your damn mags, make sure your rifle's clean, pack a backpack with some food in it, and get ready to fight. I'm not putting up with this. I am not letting my country be ruled by a dictator. I'm not letting anybody take my guns. If it goes 1 inch further, I'm going to start killing people.
Is that patriotism?
According to our founding fathers, it is.
Really? So you're going to start shooting people if you don't get what you want, calling the president a dictator?
Jefferson said we probably should overthrow the country every 20 years.
Well, do you want to overthrow the country now?
No, I don't. It must be a really slow news day for you, Alan. This story is like 16 months old.
No, well, your YouTube is, but you, of course, came into the news cycle when you went to defend Clive and Bundy. And,
right, and I thought that's why you had me call us to talk about Bundy.
Well, that is, but of course, the comments you made play into the kind of people who went to defend Clive and Bundy. We had Bundy on the show, actually, Friday night. And we asked Mr. Bundy about you being there, and here's how that conversation went. One gentleman named James Yeager, I don't know if you know who he is, he came to you from Tennessee, as I understand it. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, I don't know who he is. I've never, I've wanted to shook hands with a lot of these guys, but I don't know them by name.
Does that kind of point of view?
Go
ahead.
Let me tell you what I'm thinking there, and I'm not quite sure what the question you asked him was. But what he's saying is he's not willing to give up his rights and to the government, and he's willing to fight for it. And that's basically what all of these people are here. They feel like their freedoms and liberty is being taken away, and they're willing to fight for it. That guy sounds pretty radical.
So it is relevant, to the Bundy situation, which is a current story, not a year and a half old. But he said he didn't know who you were. Could that have been true?
He met a lot of people. There were thousands and thousands of people there.
What did you accomplish there, and what did you experience when you were at the Bundy Ranch?
Well, what we accomplished was we just released a documentary, the only unedited conversation with Clive and Bundy to be broadcast. It's on YouTube. It's available for free. And
we didn't edit our conversation with him, but go ahead.
Okay. And I wanted to see what was going on. I wanted to actually get a feel for what was happening as a U.S. citizen. I wanted to see what was going on.
And what did you see?
I saw I was there after the weekend, after the quote unquote standoff, and I saw a lot of vandalized farm equipment, and I saw a lot of inhumanely treated and murdered animals.
There's a story out tonight that Drudge has that Harry Reid is being threatened by some of the people defending Clive and Bundy. I mean, when you use heated rhetoric like I'm going to start killing people, which you're still defending, having said, although you said, you apologized, but said you'd say it again, doesn't that bring forth a kind of threats that we're now seeing, like against Harry Reid, when you use that kind of heated rhetoric?
Well, I mean, some people are very passionate about how they feel.
But should we be threatening people, saying we're going to kill people if we give gun control moves another inch? Is that really, we want to teach our kids to deal with issues in this manner?
Thinking that violence is never the answer is just as wrong as thinking it's always the answer.
When is violence the answer?
Well, I guess that's for each individual.
Well, I'm asking you.
I think when people, slavery is wrong. Taking 100% of somebody's profits is called slavery.
Okay.
Well, what's not slavery? 90% is 90%.
Well, we have the lowest tax rates now we've had since Eisenhower. So, back to as much more during Carter. Prior to Reagan, we had tax rates, and the higher tax rate was in the 90%, as you know. But, I mean, so under those, if you had a tax rate you didn't like, that would warrant violence?
Well, it did at the beginning of this country.
So if the tax rates went up, would you then start killing people?
Listen, I understand that you're trying to goad me into something.
No, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. I'm not trying to goad you, and I'm not trying to be confrontational, really. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from.
I took cameras to the Bundy Ranch. I took cameras out there, and I made a documentary.
Right.
Well, listen, I realize that right now the best thing to do is try to sway this thing politically, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a responsible member of the media, and I'm trying to tell these stories as they are and not as I see them.
But when you say about killing people and saying I would say it again, is that being a responsible articulator of the point of view? Really?
That's my point of view.
So you would start a civil war, or you would be the first shot in a civil war. When? How? You see it coming anytime soon?
No, I don't. I really don't, and I hope it doesn't. I don't want it to happen.
Well, I'm not suggesting you do want it to happen, but really, are we anywhere close to that in this country?
I think that if the BLM would have fired a shot, that would have been the second shot heard around the world.
I know you've said that before, but the BLM was smart enough to leave because they didn't want that kind of confrontation.
Right, and I'm glad they did.
So they did the right thing by leaving because they didn't want shots fired.
Well, they shouldn't have even showed up. But yes, they didn't.
But Mr. Bundy is not someone who didn't pay his bills. He didn't pay his rent since 1993. Yeah, he owes the federal government money.
Right, and if I didn't pay my mortgage, the bank wouldn't show up with 200 armed men.
Well, if they felt threatened, they might. If they got a sense that there were going to be other people there with guns, they might. If they thought that they were going to be in danger physically, they might.
Well, if if you go and rustle people's cattle and steal their land, you got to expect at some point they're going to defend themselves.
So do you see yourself ever firing that shot?
Hopefully not.
Well, I mean, if taxes go up, if the gun control continues, you see it happening then?
If we look at society throughout history, there's always been a tipping point. Will there ever be a tipping point in this country? Probably so. There has to be. We are not immune to reality.
All right. I appreciate you talking to us, Mr. Yeager, though. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. We'll be back.